وصلاة ربي وسلامه ورحمته وبركاته على ذاك النبي الكريم نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. We continue in our preparation for Ramadan on this day of the 15th of Sha'ban, the year 1440, Sunday, which agrees on the Gregorian calendar. What's today again? The regular calendar. What's today? 21st? 21st? 21st. Gee. This is the 21st of March? April? Yeah, we're in my mind, right? April the 21st, 2019. It's called having a lot on your mind, right? So April the 21st, 2019, Sunday, which agrees with the 15th of Sha'ban. Alhamdulillah, I remember the Islamic day. 15th of Sha'ban, the year 1440 after the Hijrah, after the migration of the Prophet ﷺ. We were discussing the shurut, or as we gave the sisters the key towards having knowledge of certain affairs or ahkam or rulings in Ramadan. We talked about last week, for example, that a person, he's an alim. He's an alim. That a person has knowledge of a certain matter or have a knowledge of the ruling. We'll discuss it, inshallah. We talked about this last week. That he's an alim, that he has knowledge of the hukum. He has knowledge of the ruling. وَأَن يَكُنَ الْفَاعِلُ لَهَا عَالِمًا. That the person who does it, that he has knowledge of what he's doing or she is doing. He has knowledge of the ruling. Or knowledge of the time, as we said. Because a person could be jahil of the hukum, jahil of the ruling. He could be ignorant of the ruling or be ignorant of the time, as we discussed last week. The second thing we mentioned was now a person being in a state of remembrance. Being in a state of remembrance, not forgetfulness. When yakun dhakiran, he's in a state of remembrance of what he or she is doing. The third thing is that he or she did it by his or her own choice. Meaning they did it on purpose. They did it on purpose. يعني تعمدوا هذا الشيء. So those are the three things that we discussed last class, and then we gave examples for each one. For example, last week in the last class, we were discussing about what they call jahil bil waqt. He's ignorant of, or she's ignorant of the time. We gave examples of that on the hadith of Asma bint Abi Bakr, which is in Al-Bukhari. As we discussed last week of what happened, what took place, where they put forth their best effort in trying to find out whether or not the sun set totally. It must be from that AC or that air conditioner. The air conditioner. That they tried their best to find out whether or not the sun totally set, whether or not it went down, and it was the time for Maghrib. And it was during the day that was very cloudy. It was very cloudy. And to the point, they broke their fast thinking that the sun or the time for iftar, or the time for breaking the fast, started. So upon that, they broke their fast. As Asma bint Abi Bakr radiyallahu anha, and she said in the hadith, and then to the point, she said, upon us breaking our fast, the sun appeared. The sun appeared. However, she said in the last part of the hadith, when we broke our fast, she said we were not commanded to make up our fast. Why? Due to the fact that they were ignorant of jahil bil waqt. They was ignorant of the time. And they did their best to find out whether or not the sun had actually what? Set. So based upon that, the message of Allah, they were not commanded to make up their fast due to them being ignorant of the time. There's another type of ignorance, for example, what they call jahil bil hukum. As we're continuing from where we left off last class, being ignorant of the ruling. The ruling. So a person that can only be ignorant of the time, but he can also be ignorant of the ruling. Person like we gave this example last week. For example, a person that wakes up late, let's just say he runs to eat, thinking that Fajr has not, the time of Fajr hasn't come or hasn't started yet. He just grabs something to eat. So he's thinking that he knows the time or she knows the time. And they look up and they look at their phone. Oh, the time of Fajr started 10 minutes ago. And they did not realize that. If that was the case, then they still will continue that fast due to the fact that they were ignorant of the time. They were jahil bil waqt. As long as they did not do it on purpose and they were totally in a state of heedlessness. They were totally in a state of unawareness. They had no idea. They just thought the time was this. And sometimes even people, they will eat iftar and they will eat thinking that the time did not come in yet. And they'll continue to eat. And then they'll find out it's 3 minutes in the Fajr or what have you, or 5 minutes in the Fajr. If that's the case and they were totally in a state of heedlessness or they was in a state of unawareness, then they would continue their fast. Why? Because we said they were in a state of what? Jahil bil waqt. They was ignorant of the time. They were ignorant of what? Of the time. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? Gee. Also, we said you have jahil bil hukum. So the second category of jahil, of ignorance, is ignorance of the ruling. A jahil bil hukum. For example, as we know, there's a khilaf kabir as far as the hijama, one getting cupped in the state of Ramadan, of a person in the state of fasting, whether or not they should get cupped, what they call hijama. Hijama is cupping. Cupping basically is removal of the bad blood in the human body. And it's a form of remedy, or it's a remedy and it's a cure, and it's a form of medicine. So that reason we say that the hijama, or cupping, removal of that blood while one is fasting, we tell the people it's a major khilaf in this issue, and I would say to the people to leave it off until the sun goes down. But there are from Ahl Ilm, and that what I lean towards is what even the great Imam Sheikh Salih Fawzan and other than them, Ibn Uthaymeen, and what they say. Where they say that the hijama or cupping does break the fast due to the copious amounts of blood that is removed when a person is doing it. And as a result of it, it does break the fast. That's not the point in why I'm saying this. How is it in correlation to what we're speaking about now? How is it in correlation with it? Let's just say a person he got himself, or she got himself cupped. She got herself cupped, and she was ignorant of the ruling. Like, I didn't know that cupping breaks my fast. I had no idea. So in this case, he or she is ignorant of the ruling. She didn't know. So if they think that the affair of a hijama, of cupping, does have no effect, then there's nothing upon them. They can continue their fast. Unless the fast harms them, that's something different. Unless the fast continues to harm them after they got cupped and they start to lose, for example, a lot of energy where they feel like they're about to pass out, that's something different. But let's just say, for example, a person was fasting and they got cupped. They have blood removed and they continue fasting. And they did not know the ahkam or the rulings in regards to cupping while one is fasting. Like I said, I lean towards the position that cupping towards one fasting does break your fast due to the copious amounts of blood that's removed when one is receiving this type of remedy. For that reason, you'll even find, like we said, from the A'imma, from the scholars that say that hijama or cupping does break the fast, is Sheikh Salih Fawzan and Ibn Uthaymeen, and even I think the great Imam Ibn Baz, if I have to check just to make sure. But I know for sure Ibn Uthaymeen says it does, Sheikh Salih Fawzan says it does, and if you look to their evidences and proofs, it does point towards that is the strongest opinion, no doubt. But we know they have the qa'idah, the principle that we've learned in Arba'een an-Nawawiyya, where the Messenger of Allah said, Da' ma yuribuk ila ma la yuribuk. Leave off what gives you doubt to what does not give you doubt. So we say that if one was to perform the hijama, to do it after you break your fast. When the sun sets, break your fast. But that's not the point why we're mentioning this. Let's just say, the hijama, we know for sure, which I, like I said, prefer, and I lean towards this position, that it is haram while one is fasting. Fine. I've seen a person getting a hijama or getting cupped, and they're fasting. So I say to him, or her, do you know the rule, or him rather, I say to him, do you know that the ruling in regards to the hijama, that you shouldn't do it? And if let's just say they say, I'm ignorant, I didn't know. Does that now break their fast or not? Based upon what we're discussing now, Will we say ignorant of what? Of the ruling, which would necessitate that their fast is still what? Still valid, because they're ignorant of what, everyone? The ruling. Let's just say, for example, another ruling, another example. Let's just say a person did not know that. There's a lot of examples I could give. Try to get something real clear and easy. Now, G. Let's just say, for example, a person took injections, put injections in his or her body that gives some type of nutrients. As we'll discuss, inshallah, that injections of giving nutrients to the body does break the fast, if it gives nutrients to the body. However, if it doesn't give nutrients to the body, it's something different. The illah to tahrim, or the reason why it's haram to inject something in your bloodstream, the reason, if it gives nutrients to the body. If it does not give nutrients to the body, then it does not break your fast. If it gives nutrients to the body, it breaks the fast. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? Is it clear what I'm saying? Fine. So now let's just say a person during the month of Ramadan, they're fasting, they took it in a shot or injected in their bloodstream, and they were, or that injection gives nutrients to the body. Fine. They did not know, totally unaware. In that particular instance, we say, okay, you did not know, then that person should what? Continue to fast. As long as he knows now or she knows, then it's incumbent upon them to abstain from that affair, to stay away from it. But if they're ignorant of the ruling, like we said, then there's nothing upon them. And I'll give examples of this, even as the great Ibn Uthaymeen that he mentions. Now, this is what he says. This is exactly what I just said. Alhamdulillah. He says, في الجهاب الحكم مثل أن يحتجم رجل وهو صائم يظن أن الحجامة لا تؤثر فهذا لا شيء عليه لأنه جاهل بالحكم والجاهل بالوقت مثل أن يظن أن الفجر لم يطلع فيأكل ويشرب ثم يتبين له بعد ذلك أنه قد أكل وشرب بعد طلوع الفجر فإن صيامه صحيح ولا قضاء عليه لأنه جاهل بالوقت ودليل هذا عموم قوله تعالى ربنا لا تؤاخذنا إن نسينا أو أخطأنا. He says, for example, similar to a person who's ignorant of the ruling. And he gives an example by saying, the one who gets cupped and he's fasting. And he thinks that cupping does not affect one's fast. So you see that the Shaykh takes the position that cupping while one is fasting is what? Haram. You shouldn't do it. You see it clearly. For he says, for in this instance, it's nothing upon him, because he was ignorant of the ruling. And he said an example of that also is ignorant of the time, similar to a person that for Fajr, him thinking that Fajr, the sun did not what? Rise yet. So he eats and he drinks until it becomes clear to him after that. And if it becomes clear to him and he eats and he drinks after Tulu' al-Fajr, then yes. But before it was clear to him, then we say that his fasting is valid. Siyamuhu sahih. His fasting is valid and there's nothing upon him. Why, everyone? Because he was ignorant of what? Of the time. Jahil bil waqt. He's jahil of the time. He said that is due to the generality or the general statement of Allah Ta'ala, which is in Surah Al-Baqarah. He said, رَبَّنَا لَا تُؤَاخِذْنَا إِن نَسِينَا أَوْ أَخْطَأْنَا. Oh our Lord, do not hold us accountable if we are in a state of forgetfulness or if we do something out of what? Out of mistake. طيب. Also likewise, he gives the narration of what happened with Asma bint Abi Bakr. أفطرنا على عهد النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم في يوم وفي يوم غيم ثم طلعت الشمس. Same thing I just mentioned. So we broke our fast during the time of the Messenger of Allah in a cloudy day. Then the sun appeared. It says it's in Al-Bukhari, and he says, وَلَمْ تَذْكُرْ أَنَّ الرَّسُولِ صلى الله عليه وسلم أَمَرَهُمْ بِالْقَضَاءِ وَلَوْ كَانَ الْقَضَاء وَاجِبًا لَأَمْرَهُمْ بِهِ. To the end of it, where he mentioned, it says, at the end of the narration, he says there was nothing mentioned, nor did she mention that the Messenger of Allah commanded them to make it up. And if the making it up was obligatory, he would have commanded them to do so. And it would have been conveyed and made clear to the ummah, to the followers of the Messenger of Allah, who is the rest of his ummah. It would have been made clear. So in this state, it wasn't commanded. So that reason, we say that the origin is what? The origin is that the person's fast is valid if they're ignorant of the time. He also gives another one. He gives another good example, what we're mentioning now. The hadith of Adi ibn Hatim, the great Sahabi. Where's another example of being ignorant of the ruling. As everyone knows the hadith, he says when Adi ibn Hatim, he says that he ate and drank until he took 2 threads of 2 pins and he put it under his pillow. So he kept eating and drinking while the actual pins or the threads were under his pillow. While the actual pins and threads were under his pillow. So when he said that he continued to eat and drink, because as we know in the ayah, Allah Ta'ala says, eat and drink until the white thread becomes clear from the black thread. Right, everyone? As it says in Surah Al-Baqarah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Kulu washrabu hatta yatabayna lakum al-khayt al-abyad min al-khayt al-aswad min al-fajr. Right? He says, eat and drink until the white thread becomes clear and distinct from the what? Black thread. So Adi ibn Hatim thought it was pertaining to an actual what? Piece of thread, meaning of what is a pin, which you actually use to sew or think, something of that nature, something similar to that. A little pin. So he took a pin and he put it under his pillow. One, which we said it was pertaining to something white, and the other was black. And he continued to eat and drink. So it says in the narration, he says that he kept continuing to drink, and he took those 2 pins, وَعِقَالَيْن وَهُمَا الْحَبْلَانِ. He also took those pins and those threads and that string. He says in which you utilize in order to tie a she-camel. He took the threads, or those type of strings, and he tied them and he put them under. One was white and one was black to the end of it. At any rate, he says, he told the Messenger of Allah that when I did this, the white thread did not become distinct and clear from the black thread. The Messenger of Allah explained to him that that is not the meaning of what he was saying. Rather, the meaning of it is the black thread or the white thread of the horizon in the sky. And it's not the actual threads of rope or what you would take as pins or rope that is tied around the she-camel. So the Messenger of Allah clarified it. So in that instance, what do we say, everyone? The point of the matter is, the Messenger of Allah explained it. He clarified it with the meaning of the white thread becoming distinct from the black, which is in the horizon. The point of the matter is, did he command Adi ibn Hatim to make up his fast or not? Did he command it? If you'll know in the narrations, he did not. Why? Because Adi was what? Ignorant of what, everyone? He's ignorant of the ruling. He was ignorant of the ruling. So those are examples to show if one is ignorant of the ruling, there's something different. But if one knows he's upon ilm, then of course then we know it affects one's fast. Right. So that's in regards to the first condition that we mentioned. The second one we also gave examples of last week. Am I not right, everyone? Which is to be in a state of remembrance. To be in a state of remembrance. And I think that's clear. I think that, inshallah, is clear. For if a person is in a state of absolute forgetfulness, then he still can continue his fast. Let's just say he ate 3 hamburgers straight. The person would say, subhanAllah, how can you forget? Hey, I've heard instances of a person eating a whole Snickers bar while they were fasting. Until you came and you walked in and you say, Akhi, do you remember you fasted? Oh, I forgot. If a person says that upon you reminding them, then that's when their fast will be either now be valid or what? Invalid. If they continue to eat after they've been reminded, that's when their fast will be what? Affected. It does not matter. If they're in a state of forgetfulness, then the fast is not affected. If they have ate something or drank something, it does not affect the fast if they're in a state of absolute forgetfulness and heedlessness. So it says in the hadith we'll discuss, inshallah, it's in Buloogh Al-Maraam. If the sisters follow me in the other classes, I'm going to mention that, inshallah. The hadith in regards to one being in a state of forgetfulness, and that's how his fast or her fast is not affected by it, as long as they're in that state. Right. We also mentioned the third condition. The third condition, a person will probably ask me, what about a person being in a state of forgetting while he or she is what? be in a state of while he or she is in a state of forgetfulness and they be intimate with each other. You'll find that Ahl Ilm say that that is probably more than likely impossible. Why? Because there's no way that one could be intimate except one of the two will remind you. And so some of them say that is what? That cannot even happen. And if it happens, then bring it. But more than likely it does not happen because more than likely one of the two couples will remind the other. The only way that probably can happen is if maybe they were totally ignorant. Both of them. In that circumstance. And I'll give the what? The ruling for that, inshallah, later on. I'll talk about that later because there's some details in that. Person would say, well, we forgot. In the state of forgetfulness, you forget to be intimate with your wife. They said, but if a person is practicing fasting in the month of Ramadan, what are you looking for? Go straight and make it right. Mm-hmm. Go straight and then make it right. We'll discuss that in a minute, inshallah. Fine. So we said that a person has to be in a state of remembrance. And the last thing we mentioned last class was what? He has to be in a state of mukhtar. Or a person is doing it out of his own accord or hers own accord, meaning by their own choice of what they intentionally did. Intentionally. If they did something unintentionally, then it does not affect the fast. But if they do it intentionally, and they're the reason and the causes for their thing that they fell into that nullifies your fast, then that breaks your fast. And I'm going to give numerous examples of this. So the third condition, did I mention that last class, sisters, last week? Did I mention that? Tayyib. So it's now we have examples of this. For example, let's just say you were walking down the street. You were walking down the street and you smell something very repugnant, a disgusting smell, a repugnant smell. To the point where it made your stomach feel a little queasy. You felt obnoxious and some queasiness in your stomach to the point where you vomited. Tayyib, we know, as we discussed, I don't know if we didn't discuss, we talked about smoking last week. There's the ruling for if you now forced yourself to vomit with your finger. If you take your finger in your mouth, put it in the back of your throat, and you caused yourself to vomit, that nullifies your fast. Because you the one that caused it. You're the one that did it on your own accord. You're the one that actually intentionally did it. Is it clear what I'm saying so far, everyone? But however, in contrast to the one that walks down the street and they smell a detestful, repugnant smell, and it causes them to throw up unintentionally where they were overtaken by how they felt, and they threw up. Or they vomited, They vomited. اللهم رب هذه الدعوة التامة والصلاة القائمة آتي محمد الوسيلة والفضيلة وبعثه مقام محمود الذي وعدته. جيد. What happened? Who? So we said that the intention, القصد, فهو الاختيار وضده الإكراه وعدم القصد. فمن أكره على شيء من المفطرات ففاعل فلا إثم عليه وصيامه صحيح. طيب. So now we want to talk about that the one who intentionally does something, or he does it or his or her own accord, or out of their own choice, and they intentionally do it, then they are held responsible and accountable. And it also affects their fast. What you looking for? He's outside. He went back outside. So he said that the qasd, or the intention of what one does, if he intentionally does it, then that will affect their fast. Due to the fact that you'll find it is ayat in the book of Allah, Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, that he mentions this, subhanahu, Jalla fil ula, that he says that Allah will not hold you accountable for what you've done out of mistake, however, what your hearts intended. What your hearts intended. وَلَكِنْ مَا تَعَمَّدَتْ قُلُوبُكُمْ. What your hearts intended. ولأن الله رفع حكم الكفر عمن أكره عليه فما دونه من باب أولى ولقوله صلى الله عليه وسلم رفع عن أمتي الخطأ والنسيان وما استكرهوا عليه وحديث حسن وتشهد له النصوص من ذرعه القيء أي غلبه فليس عليه قضاء ومن استقاء عمدا فليقضي. He says firstly, based upon this hadith, he says whoever is overcome by vomiting, meaning something that he might have smelled or something he might have, let's just say, been sick from a sickness or what have you, and it overcomes him or succumbs him, where he becomes sick to the point where they vomit, or that feeling of him about to vomit or she about to vomit, it overtakes him. And they do it unintentionally. The message of Allah, as it says in the narration, they do not have to make it up, but however, the one who intentionally caused it, then that is the individual that what? Has their fast affected. So a person that sticks their fingers in the back of their mouth, and they're the cause of why the vomit actually comes up out of your stomach, then that person's fast is invalid. That is, like we said, in regards to the person who does it intentionally. And there's so many examples of this. Like we talked about before, if someone was forced to break their fast. So your husband came in, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not make this a reality. He says, break your fast. I want to be intimate with you. Break your fast. And they forced you, and then you have a type of, which you're in the state of, your life being threatened or being hurt or what have you. Or, for example, they say, break your fast, or else I'll hurt so-and-so, or else I'll kill so-and-so, for example. Just give an example. But if that's the case, where you broke your fast, then also likewise, it's not affected because you were in a state of what they call ikrah. You were forced, you were coerced to do it. Also, for example, as far as in regards, as we'll talk about inshallah in a couple of minutes, in regards to medi and many. We'll talk about pre-seminal discharge and actual semen in regards to men. As far as as they call it, I think for lack of better words, the people understood it as they say pre-cum. But it's called pre-seminal discharge. Pre-seminal discharge is what comes out before the actual semen. Pre-seminal discharge does not break the fast. Pre-seminal discharge does not break your fast at all. It doesn't break your fast. Pre-seminal discharge. We'll discuss and give the details, inshallah. Semen breaks your fast, except in a time where, like we said, you had no control over it. For example, of you having a wet dream or what have you. We're going to get the details of it. As a wet dream, the reason why a person's fast is not broken due to a wet dream is because of what, everyone? Which condition? The third one. Because it was what? It was not done by your own choice. Rather, it was something that you were overtaken by, either by your dream or what have you. You were overtaken by it, and like we said, if a person wakes up, then he or she can still fast because it was not done intentionally. It was not done out of their own choice. Is it clear what I'm saying so far, everyone? طيب. Another example of this. Let's just say, and there's a question that was asked, عَمَّنْ يَطْحَنُ الْحُبُوبِ إِذَا تَطَايَرَ إِلَى حَلْقِهِ شَيْءٌ مِنْ جَرَّاءِ ذَلِكَ وَهُوَ صَائِمٌ فَهَلْ يَجْرَحُ ذَلِكَ صَوْمَهُ. He says about the one who that he grinds up some type of pills or whatever. He's doing some type of work. He's grinding it up, and the particles happen to fly in the back of his throat while he's doing that. And he swallows it unintentionally. Does that now affect his fast? We say what? Based upon those three things that I taught everyone, does it affect the fast or not? It does not. Due to the fact that he did it unintentionally. طيب. Jay. And if you want to now get the complete answer, you would say, everyone, due to the fact that the reasons of what will affect one's fast, that has to be knowledgeable of the time and the hukum. And he also has to what? Has to be in a state of remembrance. And he has to be done out of he or she's own accord and by their own choice. If that's not the case, then it doesn't affect his fast. And the example is that is what we gave here. I'm going to give another example to the sisters. What is the ruling of sitting in the day, during the day of Ramadan? And he's sitting close to some type of machine or appliance, and it has in it smoke. It has in it smoke, or it has in it bukhar. It has in it some type of smoke, and it has what they call bukhur, or it has some type of what they call it, bukhur. Well, it's bukhar here, and it's bukhar. It has some type of foam or smoke. And he said, and that is in direct connection with my job and the type of employment that I'm in. What is the ruling? Does it affect my fast or not? Firstly, we know if a person smokes intentionally, what's the ruling, everyone? Breaks your fast. This person said, I work with machines. I work with machines that have smoke and it also has steam. And he said, and that is in direct connection with the type of job that I have, an employment I have. Does this now break the fast based upon those three conditions I gave everyone? Now apply it in this particular question. Does it apply? Does it affect the fast or not, sisters? No, it doesn't. Why? It's not by choice. So it's not by choice. So we say the answer is no, it does not affect. Because you didn't do it on purpose, you didn't intentionally do it. So if as long as it's not by your own choice or it was done by your own accord, then it does not affect It does not affect he or she's what? Her fast. طيب. A little question. A person that's fasting and has some thoughts, and we're just, let's be mature. I'm not saying this to be some type of pervert or being perverted at all. But it does happen during the month of Ramadan, so let's take this serious. There's a man or a woman, let's just say they're thinking about intimacy. They're thinking about intimacy and him or her that they what? Firstly, pre-seminal discharge emanated. Does that affect the fast or not, everyone? Pre-seminal discharge. Pre-seminal discharge, which is called medhi, not many. Medhi. Pre-seminal discharge started coming out while he or she is fasting. Well, as far as a man, it's pre-seminal discharge. But as far as women, I think as far as I know, they become wet or what have you. Does that now break your fast or not? We say here in this instance, it does not break your fast. Because number one, of course, you did not cause it. You were just merely thinking, of course. You were thinking, but you did not make any type of activity or movement. And that's why we take the initiative to now clarify to the people during the month of Ramadan not to be a cause of what might invalidate your fast, especially if it's touching or feeling or what have you, especially if it's going to lead to the point, like we said, where semen will come, that will be ejaculated or what have you, it will start to emanate, and it will definitely, without any ikhtilaf, it will break the fast. We'll discuss that, inshallah. Fine. Now, let's just say a person's thinking. They're thinking about intimacy, and the man, semen comes out instead of what? Instead of pre-seminal discharge. Semen now comes out. Semen comes out. And it was just merely from him thinking about it. But he did not cause it where he touched himself, or he did not feel himself, he didn't do any movements. But it was just from merely thinking to the point where semen emanated, but he did not cause it by any type of physical movement. Does that now affect his or her fast? Oh, let's just say his fast. His fast. Does it affect his fast or not? Notice I didn't say pre-seminal discharge. I'm saying what? I'm saying now semen. Semen itself or sperm itself. Does it affect the fast or not? Keep in mind, he didn't do any movement, no physical movement. He didn't cause it, anything. It was in the start, then semen automatically just started coming out. Huh? We say here no. Why, everyone? We said it was done, not done by choice. Same thing, it applies here. Ahsant. Sisters do an excellent job. Let's just say now, another person where he was feeling his wife or spouse during the day of Ramadan, and he caused it or she caused it to the point where semen started to come out. They did the movement, or he did the movement, or she did the movement while they were fasting in the month of Ramadan. Semen did come out now. What's the ruling in that in regards to that person? The fast is what? Is invalid. She said invalid. The fast here in this instance is invalid. Why? Because you caused it. You intentionally did it. You were the reason why what? The sperm came out. So if you're the one that did it on your own accord, you're the reason. You did the movements. You did the physical movements. It now will what? Invalidate your fast. I even read it quickly. He says, إذا كان هذا الإنزال في حال النوم. This is even Ibn Uthaymin, which is the same thing. He says, إذا كان هذا الإنزال في حال النوم فإنه لا يضره لأنه بغير اختياره. وكذلك إذا كان الإنزال عن تفكير مثل أن يفكر الإنسان أنه يجامع أهله فأنزل فإنه لا يفسد صومه. لقول النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم إن الله تجاوز عن أمتي ما حدثت به أنفسها ما لم تعمل أو تتكلم ولكن لا يتخذ من هذا عادة فيكثر التفكير في ذلك. أما لو كان الإنزال بالمعالجة يعني بالحركة مثل أن يتمرغ الإنسان على فراشه أو يقبل زوجته أو يحرك ذكره حتى ينزل فإن الصوم في هذه الحال يفسد ويكون آثما بذلك إن كان الصيام واجبا ويلزمه القضاء وعليه أيضا الإمساك وإن كان ذلك في رمضان. طيب. So it says if this type of sperm that is now come out, if it was during sleep, while he was daydreaming or he was in a state of he was asleep, and now it comes out, doesn't harm him at all. It doesn't harm him or her at all, because it wasn't due to their own choice. However, if sperm or semen came out and it was due to just thinking, merely thinking, for a person he thinks, for example, about him being intimate with his family or being intimate with his wife, of course, with his wife, and he said, and semen happens to come out. For verily his fast is not what? Invalid. He said, due to the hadith of the Messenger of Allah, verily Allah overlooks my ummah of what its selves or what its inner selves has feelings of, meaning what they think in their minds. As long as they don't act upon it or speak about it. As long as they do not act upon it or speak about it. However, he says, I highly recommend, of course, that you do not take this as something habitual, where you think a lot, to the point where it may lead to now truly affecting your fast and invalidating your fast. He said, however, if now the sperm coming out was due to what they call mu'alaja, meaning you caused it due to some movement. For example, he even gives examples. You rolling around in the ground or rolling around in your bed or kissing your family or kissing your wife or you touching your private part or things of that nature until semen or sperm comes out. For verily in this state, in this particular situation now, your fast is invalid. Your fast now is invalid. And also, a person will be sinful due to this during the month of Ramadan, especially if the fast was obligatory. And it would necessitate that you have to make it up after the month of Ramadan. And you will have to refrain from food and drink for the rest of that day, if it's in the month of Ramadan. Is it clear, everyone? Okay. What's the ruling in regards to swimming during the month of Ramadan? Swimming. There's a sister that said you can. There's a sister that, is it unanimous amongst the sisters? You all agree, or is there someone that doesn't agree? Just to be quick, because we got to hurry up. They all agree. The answer is correct. The answer is correct. He said, لا بأس أن يغوص الصائم في الماء أو يعوم فيه أي يسبح لأن ذلك ليس من المفطرات والأصل الحل حتى يقوم دليل على الكراهة ونعني بذلك الكراهة التحريمية لا الكراهة التنزيهية. وليس هناك دليل على التحريم ولا على الكراهة وإنما كرهه بعض أهل العلم خوفا من أن يدخل إلى حقه شيء وهو لا يشعر به. He says no problem with a person diving in water, or they call it ya'um, or what they call yasbah, to swim. He said because that is not from what will break the fast, and the origin that all the affairs of mu'amalat is upon is something being lawful until there's a dalil pointing towards it being other than that, either being detested or what? Or being unlawful. And he said there's no evidence and proof for it being forbidden or unlawful, nor it being detested. He said even though some of the people of Ahl Ilm detest it out of fear that maybe something might enter the throat which will cause one to render his fast invalid, and he does not what? He's not aware of it. But the origin is that what he can do it. Last question, and we'll stop here inshallah. He says in regards to the person that sleeps and he comes upon the morning before Fajr, and he is in a state of major impurity, meaning from him being intimate with his wife or the wife being intimate with her husband. He says in the time of Fajr comes in and they stand, of course they make the ghusl, but still the time came in, let's just say they ate sahur and they started their fast, but they did not make a ghusl yet. So they're still in a state of major impurity. What do we say here, everyone? Is their fast valid or is it invalid? I heard a sister say that it is what? Valid. Is that correct? Well, sister, does she agree or she don't agree? Is there anyone that doesn't agree? Jade, so it's unanimous. So a person come upon in the morning, and we'll discuss that because that's in Buloogh Al-Maraam. It's in Buloogh Al-Maraam. How old is she? Her father's in there. Her father. That's her father. She's right there. Fine. So in regards, what was I saying? Now, the correct answer to that is correct. That it is what? Is correct. Due to the hadith of Aisha, which we'll discuss a little bit later, inshallah, which comes in the other books, which we'll discuss later on. We'll stop here, inshallah. So you have to pray. Any questions about the lesson? Any questions about the lesson? The start time, sister, may Allah forgive me, is 2:30. 2:30. I'll be here 2:30 next week. Anything else? Questions about the class? What she say? طيب هذا وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسبحانك اللهم وبحمدك وأشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.